This Shabbat we talk about two societies, two models of leadership in the world, two structures by which the world supposedly can find a way forward that evolve and ultimately self-implode. They do not have the strength and the foundations of building the future for humanity. The first of the two relates to the generation of the flood, Noah, the ark. So the Torah describes a society then that was bent on achieving their own personal fantasy to the exclusion and to the disregard of any sense of law, order, structure, value. When we live in a world in which everything is just about what I'm entitled to, the age of consenting adults where whatever you want to live out, your wildest dream, just go and do whatever you want, and then the world will feel free and people will be able to sense the freedoms of life and their human rights. Ultimately, if there is no respect for definition, for law, for order, for structure, for definition, we live in a world that ultimately is going to lead to a society in which I want what you have and I feel entitled to it. Eventually it's going to land up having a world lawless, with immorality and ultimately violence as people begin to help themselves to things that don't belong to them. The word for violence that is used in the Torah is Hamas, which means lawlessness and violence, and the world is destroyed. Noah survives, and somehow 300 years later, a new society evolves. And as happens so often in political history, we have the pole opposite, the pendulous motion of correcting a failed society by moving completely to the opposite extreme and hoping that that'll compensate for the failures of the past. The next generation relates to the generation of the Dor HaFlaga, the dispersion of the society, which comes about because people say we need to build a tower, we need to build a central control, we have to build a regime, a power of law and order, a police state that is going to ensure that no laws are infringed, that people behave, that they are controlled, and that we have an ability to dictate how the future is going to evolve. The Midrash tells us that in that society, when they were building this huge tower that was going to impose itself over society of people far and wide, they valued more the bricks that were taken up to add another brick to the top of the tower than human life. It was the pole opposite. Human life means nothing. It's only about the central control and authority of law and order. Well, it doesn't land up being law and order. If it doesn't have a sense and understanding of humanity, of human rights, of being able to connect to what the needs of a human being is, it becomes a dictatorship, an authoritarian regime which roots out any possibility of happiness and security for people. In fact, it leads to the same things. It leads to immorality, it leads to lawlessness, and it leads to violence. There's a third possibility, and that emerges right at the end of the Shabbat's reading, which relates to the journey of Abraham Avinu Abraham. Abraham, who discovers God, who recognizes that this world is about touching people's hearts, lifting other people, caring for people, looking after people, having guidelines and values that he aspired to, that it wasn't just about living out my dream for my rights, but how can I best serve the next person's rights? In a moral society that is committed to a value system bigger than ourselves, to Hashem, we have the journey of Abraham, of his descendants, that have echoed this message throughout the world of history. Today, we have a confusion of societies. Today, we have authoritarian dictatorships utilizing the gentleness of a world that is wanting to be free and wanting to promote human rights and wanting to care about society, using all of those wonderful institutions to benefit the pursuit of dictatorships, of authoritarian regimes, abusing and cynically utilizing what people have in their hearts as symbols of freedom to be able to achieve the opposite of freedom, terror and inciting violence and causing pain to the entire world. If today there's any person who wants to have the word freedom on their lips, the freedom that the whole world ought to be crying out, is free the captives, free the elderly, free the children, free those civilians that have no place and role in winning a war. It's not about aiming and purposefully going to cause the havoc and destruction and the horrific, heinous crimes that took place just 2 weeks ago. But what is there for us to do? For us to do, we have to be part of this journey of Avraham Avinu. We have to spread light. We are told that we are like stars in the darkest night sky. And a star brings light. A star is able to guide and to give a direction. It is a compass in the darkest moments of night. We have to be those stars of light, doing another positive commandment, a positive mitzvah, a gesture, a lifting of another human being. If we are dependent on those who are having self-sacrifice to defend humanity, to defend freedom, to defend what it means to live in a moral society, and we are dependent on those who are ready to lay their lives in order to secure it, we ourselves have to become much better soldiers, civilian soldiers, in the sense that we live for a purpose, we live for a meaning, and we're ready to extend ourselves to do something more, to do another act of kindness, to do another act of tzedakah, to come to shul one more time in the week, to sense that we belong and we're part of Am Yisrael, to put on our tefillin in the morning, to start at least once a week, if not every single weekday, to do something that we haven't been doing because it's beyond our comfort line, become our comfort zone, to extend ourselves to do something positive that brings a smile to another human being, that adds to morality in the world, that fulfills the ambition of Hashem to make this world the beautiful garden it was intended to be. Let's rise, think of something that we can fulfill, that we can start to do and make a difference in our own lives, and become another star glittering in the darkest of nights, giving direction, giving light, and giving purpose. Have a beautiful Shabbos.